Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, coming to you from North Carolina. The pollen is out in full force here in the mid-Atlantic. And so here in North Carolina, capital is Raleigh, largest city of course is the Queen City, Charlotte, home of the Charlotte Hornets. North Carolina nickname is the Jayhawk State, and it has been for about 3 or 4 weeks. What? I think my notes are wrong. No, North Carolina is the Tar Heel State. Actually, I think the UNC Tar Heel men's basketball team played great in the postseason in the tournament, and I don't think they were expected to go as far as they did. So props to them, but also props to the Kansas Jayhawks. So they got it done, and and props, by the way, to the South Carolina women's basketball team. They are pretty impressive. So anyway, enough with talking about the round ball. North Carolina and South Carolina have a lot of really great, and I don't think I've ever really talked about these sites much, but they have a lot of great Revolutionary War important sites throughout both states. And from forts on the Atlantic Ocean, like down in, like Southport and Sullivan's Island, South Carolina, down near Charleston, to battlefields, to just early colonial settlements. And I'm just going to highlight a few, and maybe at some other point we'll talk about specifics. But here in North Carolina, one place that's kind of interesting is the Alamance battlefield, which is in near Burlington, North Carolina, Alamance County. And actually there was a mini revolution by these guys called the Regulators in 1771, and they fought and lost to some colonial troops that were sent out by the governor, the colonial governor of North Carolina. The guy's name was Tryon, Tryon. But anyway, that was in 1771, so that predates the Declaration of Independence by around 5 years, but it also predates the shot heard round the world, which was in 1775, right? Lexington and Concord. So, and it was a big deal. It was like this armed uprising against the crown over taxes, embezzlement of taxes, wrongful taking of land, all sorts of stuff. So that's kind of interesting. But there were several battles down here during the Revolutionary War that were of huge importance. Probably none more important than the Battle of Cowpens, which is actually in South Carolina. And that's where a force under a guy named Morgan, Colonel Morgan, an American. Well, I guess he wasn't American then, he was just a colonist, right? Because the United States of America wasn't a thing yet. But he faced off against British regulars, like crack British regulars, under a guy named Bannister Tarleton. And Tarleton had never lost to the colonials, but Tarleton's brigade was decimated at the Battle of Cowpens. And coupled with Cowpens, the defeat at Cowpens, even though it wasn't a huge battle in terms of men, right? We're talking not even one whole division of British troops, right? As we would think of a division. So just a brigade under a British lieutenant colonel, right? But the defeat was so decisive and so demoralizing to the British that coupled with the loss at Kings Mountain, which is also, Kings Mountain is right near the border of South Carolina, North Carolina, right off of I-77 actually. And with that defeat, the British basically evacuate South Carolina. With those two defeats, they basically evacuate South Carolina, head north. Well, then there's another decisive battle at Guilford Courthouse, which I went by today. It's right off of 40. And that battle really is the beginning of the end for the British, because 7 months later, Cornwallis surrenders at Yorktown to Washington. So you know, the battles, a lot of times when you think of a lot of people, when they think of the Revolutionary War, they think of, you know, battles outside of Boston, battles in the Hudson River Valley, you know, Fort Ticonderoga and some of that stuff. Battles in New Jersey, like at Trenton, Washington Cross, and the Delaware. And then, you know, they know about Yorktown. But the Carolinas were of huge importance. So we're going to, you know, if I'm back down here, we're going to talk about some of those. But I encourage you to, you know, look at that stuff. But there's a lot of, you know, remember, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina were all original 13 colonies. So a lot of stuff happened here that was of huge importance. So anyway, that's a little bit of the Revolutionary War history down here. So I was saying in the title to this that it's better to be lucky than it is to be good sometimes. And today was a perfect example. And some people would call it, you know, blessings, and I'm not going to reject that title either. But you know what? Well, I kind of screwed up. I was in New York the other day, and then I got a load, you know, and I actually did my last video, and I got a load. It was going from near Rochester, actually Brockport, going down to right outside of Atlanta. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that load. You know, this sounds good. But, and you know, and I looked at it and it was like, oh, it delivers on Thursday. Well, you know, Thursday is a 24-hour period, and what I didn't pay attention to is how late it delivered. So yesterday, and here's why this is important, because my wife had planned a vacation for us, a little over Easter vacation, and we're just going out to the shore, just hang out for a few days in our friend's beach house. And so, you know, my wife's, and I was like, well, when do you want to go out to the shore? And she's like, I want to leave, you know, pretty early Friday morning. I'm like, oh. So I have this load that delivers right outside of Atlanta at like 7 o'clock on Thursday night. So right about the time I'm making this video, actually. And it was a live unload. And so I was like, so I called my fleet manager. I'm like, hey, I got a little bit of an issue. This is totally my fault. I just didn't communicate with you. And then I took a load, excuse me, that I probably should have demurred on. I said, can you help me out here? And he's like, yeah, man. He goes, you know, sometimes I forget, you know, what I'm supposed to be doing at home. He goes, I get it. Let me see what I can do. So yesterday, I drove hard. I got as far south as I could. I drove like 625 miles yesterday. I went from like Bath, New York, all the way to Statesville, North Carolina. So he calls me and he's like, hey, I got a guy that's going to come take this load off your back and deliver it, and I'll get you a load headed north. And he says, where do you want to go? And since we were going to be over on the Jersey shore, I said, hey, get me something into southern New Jersey. So he did. And, you know, it's going to work out perfect, almost perfect. I do have to deliver tomorrow at 2000, but that's okay because I'll still be able to meet up with my wife in the morning. We'll be able to get settled into the beach house, and then, you know, have dinner, and then I can just go back to the truck stop where I'm planning to stop, grab my truck, make the delivery, and then go park my truck back at the same truck stop, hopefully, and if all the parking hasn't been taken, and you know, just commence with my little mini vacation. And then I'll just grab the truck on Monday or something, and I'll probably ditch the trailer somewhere, wherever they tell me, and I'll be home for a couple more days. But so that's the plan. It's worked out. I so appreciate my fleet manager, but I also so appreciate the other driver who came and pinch hit. He brought me an empty trailer. It wasn't dirty inside. There was like a couple of pieces of wood I picked out of it. All I had to do is I just filled up the fuel tank, but everything worked on it. And I actually, and this is really weird, but I never had this happen before, but I had a 2.3 trailer, so a 230 trailer, like brand new, nice and shiny. And guess what? No IntelliSat. Like, I went through all the menu pages, nothing. They couldn't reset it from Prime. They couldn't reset it from Carrier. So I don't know if this thing was even ever programmed correctly, but I told the other driver about it, and he was nice. He's like, oh, I guess I'll just be deleting about 100 messages, because it keeps temp. So go figure, but no IntelliSat. So anyway, I got this trailer. I moved over here towards eastern North Carolina, picked up my load, and I'm just parked, and I'm going to get out here early in the morning because there is a lot of Easter traffic, it seemed like today. And yeah, head home. But getting back to being lucky or blessed, so I was like, well, where can I go that's nearby so I can just shut down and then get back on the road early? So I find this Pilot, right, on the Pilot app. I tap on it. I look at it. There's nothing remarkable about it. And then I just happen to scroll down a little bit, and I see fuel lanes 5, parking spots 10. I'm like, oh crap, they're not gonna have any parking. I'm like, all right. But I knew there was I had seen a couple other places, like there's a Bojangles down the street, has some parking behind it. There's a couple of gas stations that have some parking behind them. So I was like, well, maybe I can just park in one of the, I'll check around and see if I can find some place to park nearby. But the way I came out, I came first to the Pilot. Like, that was the first place I reached. I'm like, all right, let me just pull in here. Cause my philosophy always is, I don't care how full a lot is. I only need one spot, right? And I seldom do create a spot like a lot of drivers do, because I just think I think it's unwise, right? I think you risk getting hit more when you're just kind of like not in an actual parking spot. So anyway, I pull in here, and pretty much they got 10 spots. But guess what? There's one open. So, well, actually, believe it or not, there were 3 of them open when I got here. One guy was already in the process of backing in, so that one was taken, obviously. But I come down to the end, and there was an open spot here, and it's next to a trailer, like an old moving van trailer, that didn't even have a tractor on the front, so it was even easier to back in here. So, like I said, lucky, blessings, whatever it is. Sometimes it's just nice to get them. And so, I'm not going to let my guard down, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. Everything's working out. I'm going to get up to Jersey, get parked, meet up with my wife and my daughter, and take a couple days off over the Easter weekend. Anyway, be safe. Take my advice on this. Do not eat too many jelly beans. Okay, I admit there's probably not such a thing as too many jelly beans. That's my favorite candy, by the way. So thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Tim Travels. Bye.